Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of November 23rd, 2020. This horoscope is brought to you by 1millionnights.com. We have a very active sky playing out all throughout the week with really important and beneficial energy shifts which are definitely going to change our attitudes and the way we perceive reality and everything that is going on in the world in the present moment. So this comes like a breath of fresh air, which is definitely going to give us a breather when all of us, the whole world collectively is caught up in this really intense dark night of the soul due to the very recent Jupiter and Pluto conjunction, and of course the same conjunction, especially Jupiter, reactivated 23 degrees of Capricorn, where January's, as in 12th of January 2020, Saturn and Pluto conjunction took place, a very, very rare astrological event, which only takes place once every 500 years, that basically deconstructed our whole normality. So regardless of what, we experience, that theme is still playing out in the background. So at least collectively on the world stage, it is still the deconstruction of the old order and the reconstruction, or better said, a rebirth, which has to give way to the new paradigm. But fortunately, individually, things can get much better starting from next week, because just at the very, very last of last week, we had the Sun changing signs, entering into the sign of Sagittarius, and also Venus leaving her home sign of Libra and entering the sign of Scorpio. Now Venus is very comfortable in her home sign of Libra, so that part wasn't really a problem. The problem was that in the last degrees, she held a lot of conversations of tension with all the Capricorn planets. So basically that meant a lot of frustration, dissatisfaction, or simply unhappiness, especially sourcing from our relationship, people letting us down, disappointments, promises which were not fulfilled, changing opinions about, people in our lives, etc. So all that drama. While it has a karmic relevance to it, because it was strictly necessary for us to see another side of all those people who we have in our lives, because, all that emotional up and down is actually helping us make decisions of who it is who we want to keep in our lives and who it is that simply doesn't resonate with who we are and what we represent in the world, or however you want to look at this. But as Venus enters Scorpio, a part of the sky where she is not very comfortable, it still is a moment when we process everything that happened, and this is where we make decisions. Now Venus in Scorpio, in her most unfavorable expression, is, really murky, unclear, shadowy feelings like envy, like obsession, like all the pleasures of the body, all the illusionary pleasures, for example, the love and basically desire for luxury, for things which are only apparently significant and valuable, but in their essence it's really nothing. But her highest expression is the kind of truth getting to the very core of what it is that true pleasure represents for all of us. And Scorpio is also about the pleasure of the soul. So chances are that in her highest expression, Venus in Scorpio is about having your peace, being able to live life the way it reflects who you are, being immersed into the mystery and the magic of life, creativity, artistic expression, being able to alchemize and transmute reality into something beautiful, even if that is just an illusion. Being able to find beauty or a higher meaning, or maybe a touch of mystery and spirit, even in those things or those areas of life which are apparently not so susceptible to this. But regardless if we might feel her lowest expression or actually her highest expression, at this time, when Venus transits Scorpio, all of us have to process it emotionally and psychologically, so it's always a really good sign, even when certain truth might be uncomfortable. And it is exactly next week when Venus is going to be holding a very powerful and relevant conversation with Uranus, an opposition where she is standing across the sky, and this can represent an emotional rebirth, one which reconfigures our value systems in a very personal and individualistic manner. And this powerful Uranian cocktail can simply give birth to a new personal paradigm of everything that we find valuable, even if it's very unusual, very unlike us, because whatever we give birth to inside of ourselves, and as I said, we're talking about a value system or the reconfiguration of our value systems, it can actually go against all the education, all the conditioning that we received all throughout our lives. For example, those things which we really appreciated throughout a lifetime, or everything that we held valuable, mostly morally, as in customs, traditions, moral values or principles which we inherited from our parents or grandparents. In an instant, in a flash, they can simply stop mattering to us and something new can take its place. Like, let me just give you very practical examples of how this energy can play out. Well, let's say that someone, due to this global crisis, lost a lot of material resources or material security, and that of course represented a struggle, because we might not have all the things, all the material items or, services that used to make our lives easier, more beautiful, more fun, happier than what we were used to before all of this began. And all of a sudden, that Uranus can give us an epiphany that, it's absolutely fine not to have those things. And just like that, in a flash of an instant, we might just stop seeking those once and for all. We might actually think that a very minimalistic lifestyle and not having so very many, things in our lives, connections, friends, social media or services, people or companies or, certain parts of society serving us or being connected to. Now that is a much happier life than the one we were used to. Or another example which might not have absolutely anything to do with money. Well, let's say you come from a family for who Christmas or a birthday or a celebration was always very important. But this year, for some reason, that celebration cannot take place. And all of a sudden, instead of feeling doomy and gloomy, you wake up to the fact that it was never actually really important for you and you don't need it in your life. You can celebrate life regardless of a date and an event whenever you feel like it. Or another example might not actually have anything to do with external events, because Venus is also self-worth, and in the sign of Scorpio, that self-worth might be evoked from the past and past experiences. So let's say at one point in your life you went through a really tough or hard or traumatic relationship, so to speak, and all of a sudden you wake up to the fact that, well, it wasn't as bad as you felt it back then. The reason why you suffered or you perceived it as such a drama had so much to do with other things in your life. For example, maybe it was a pattern you inherited from your parents. Maybe your parents didn't have a really healthy relationship with one another, and you just enacted that in your own relationship. But if you look at it from the perspective of an observer, well, it wasn't really a big thing. That partner wasn't really toxic or ill-intended. It was just a case of you being wounded to begin with. And all of a sudden, there's healing in the flesh in a second. And your self-worth is gonna increase 1,000,000-fold when you realize that all of that was just in your mind or maybe in your unconscious mind. Or yet another example, well, let's say that you are someone who really wants to create a materially prosperous and stable life for themselves. Venus in Scorpio is also the energy of treasure seeking, so to speak, when this is what you desire, and you desire prosperity in your life, regardless if you actually need it, regardless if it's actually your destiny or it's useful for your personal development or not. Venus in Scorpio sometimes can mean excess. So this was your goal and you did everything in your power to, enable it, to accomplish it. And of course you had a lot of successes, because once you sacrifice and you work for something, even if it's not, a glorious triumph, well, you still, accomplish a little bit. And that Uranus in Taurus, which also is the home sign of Venus, so there is a very potent synergy between these two planets, and you suddenly realize that you really don't care about that. It's not really your goal. It was maybe something programmed in you by other people, by society, education, because education does inspire you to aim for success and do everything in your power to achieve it, and you only achieve that once it's physically in your life and in your grasp, so to speak. And because of that Uranus, you can suddenly realize that that is not really what you want to do, that is not really who you are, and that is not your life goal and purpose. And your life, your normality, and even your future changes in that instant because something inside of you changed. So that is why this opposition between Venus and Uranus is such a strong energy, which can lead to massive emotional epiphanies, sudden realizations, but also the truth hitting you like a lightning bolt, a cold shower, which can totally reconfigure your inner value system. And this energy is really useful, especially if you're in the wrong, especially if you are, seeking illusionary things, especially when you are not very sure of what you want in life, because even though Uranus is not very gentle, because it is like an earthquake, it is like a volcano in a flash without warning, suddenly it can just align you to your true purpose, to your true values, and those things that matter to you very much. So one way or another, that Uranus is definitely going to catapult us into another paradigm, another dimension of our individual value systems. And of course, we had a taster of this energy, because before Venus was in this position, there was that Mercury, and also Mercury retrograde. So our minds already started receiving information, they already started processing it, and now the heart, Venus, follows. So we can basically look at this as Mercury just paved the path for Venus to embody that truth or embody that massive inner value system, shift or change, upgrade or revolution, call it whatever you want. Now on the world stage, this can also manifest, but Uranus and Venus both speak about currency and money and financial matters. Uranus because it is in the sign of Taurus, which is all about value and material stability, so to speak, and Venus because she is the planet which rules currency, money, and what emotional value we attribute to all of this. So this can play out as a chaos on the financial markets. There can be huge unexpected twists and turns of events. It can also represent the unexpected rise of something totally new, like a new form of cryptocurrency, or maybe something even more revolutionary than that, the new, the next. Now, speaking about money, under this aspect, it is not really a good idea to make massive investments, to take great financial risks, or to take a huge loan which you're not sure that you can repay, but at the same time to make very minor risks that can pay off handsomely if luck is with us. Now all of those minor small things are encouraged because you can never know what Uranus might conjure up. And even if you lose something insignificant, so it's a really, really good idea. The opposition of Venus and Uranus is going to perfect itself on the 27th of the month. So that is the period when we're likely to feel this energy that much more intensely. And last but not least, this can also represent surprises romantically in our love lives. Maybe someone from the distant past can all of a sudden pop up in our lives in a new and totally revolutionary format where maybe they have either changed a lot or maybe they deliver a big surprise or a shock. Like for example, after maybe 10 or 20 years, they have not forgotten us and their feelings for us have never changed. This is, just an example of how this energy can play out. Or maybe someone wronged you years ago and, it was already processed by you. You said, it is what it is, I'll move over it, it won't matter for me in my life anymore. And then suddenly they come after years with an apology or something similar. So this can represent very shocking and unusual emotional encounters. Now the sun moving into the sign of Sagittarius is also a really important energy shift because Sagittarius rules our higher thinking. It rules our life principles, our sense of justice, our own personal life philosophies, our higher education, our specialization. And whenever the sun illuminates this part of our sky, our being, so to speak, well, all of us are a little bit more empowered by our super intelligence, so to speak. All of us are a little bit more faithful, and all of us can behold the big picture, either in our lives or whatever is going on in the world, or in any matter, that much easier, because it is a really subjective energy. But sometimes the truth actually lies in subjectivity. Some things in the universe, in nature, or in our human lives can never ever be 100% objective. And that is when subjectivity, whatever we want to believe in, whatever we hold as our personal truth, they matter more than anything else. And at the very, very end of the week, the Sun holds a quincunx with Uranus. A quincunx is a minor astrological aspect, so that can mean surprises, epiphanies, sudden realizations, but not in the scorpionic sense when I spoke about the opposition of Venus and Uranus, but in a very different kind of way. For example, our faith or whatever we believe in is somehow confirmed in a moment, in a flash, in an instant, by external reality. We find some kind of means to consolidate whatever we believe and hold as true. Or it can also mean some information or some truth or anything susceptible to the highest octaves of knowledge reaches us out of nowhere, like a surprise, like a divine gift, like a moment of synchronicity. You know, when we seek for something, that also seeks us, and at the meeting point, we embrace that. But I'm not going to focus that much on this energy, because the Sun in the sign of Sagittarius is going to be the star of this astrological show all through December, and even on the 30th of November, because on the 30th of November we have the partial lunar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius, which means the Sun opposes the Moon. And then on the 14th of December, we have the solar eclipse, a very strong new moon in Sagittarius, which is going to be like a quantum leap, both individually and collectively, into something else, into, let's say, uncharted territories. I will be speaking more about this in the horoscopes to come. But before I move on, I would just like to mention that from a spiritual perspective, it is going to be a very, very intense period, because the Sun will meet the galactic center and the great attractor, both of these astrological energies being in the sign of Sagittarius. So each year when the Sun conjuncts these cosmic creational energies, basically the divine architecture enters our reality. And since we have an eclipse as well in this sign, well, this is going to be really, really massive. But now let's move on to the star of this week's astrological show, which is none other than Mercury, the planet of mind, communication, and the flow of energies, is going to form a conversation of supreme harmony called a trine with Neptune, and also a sextile, a different type of harmonious conversation with all the planets in Capricorn. Now the trine with Neptune is really important because at the same time, at the very, very end of the week, Neptune stands still in the sky and goes direct. Whenever a planet stands still in the sky, its symbolism is greatly amplified. Now the lowest expression of Neptune is naturally illusions, deceptions, lies, delusions, our perceptions, and our psyche playing tricks on us. But its highest expression is divine inspiration. It is the higher self. It is the mystery and majesty of the Spirit filling our lives and basically performing miracles by guiding us, by inspiring us through our dreams, through our fantasies. And whenever these two planets, Neptune and Mercury, speak in harmony with each other, now that is pure intellectual creational energy. That is truly mind over matter, because the mind is not fueled just by us, our desires or will or whatever, but it is fueled by the source, by the Spirit itself. And whenever it's fueled and guided by infinity, by the expression of the absolute, which is very, very much alive inside of us, some call it the higher self, our super intelligence, the super conscience, so to speak. Now that is when really, really good things happen. That is when, for example, artists can create the biggest masterpieces of their lives. That is when mercurial people, like communicators, diplomats, mediators, and Mercury in the sign of Scorpio, even doctors and healthcare professionals, scientists, investigators, detectives, and let's not forget Mercury Hermes in the sign of Scorpio, mystics and occultists, and everyone who studies the spirit their own unique way, are inspired, they are guided. So this is when healing takes place, this is when we truly regenerate, this is when we overcome our psychological limitations, this is when we snap out of depression. This is what we think, what we focus our thoughts on, what we dream and fantasize about, what we hope for, enters reality. And the sextiles that Mercury holds with the Capricorn planets is equally as important, because Capricorn is manifestation. It is the density of matter. So basically Mercury sextile Jupiter, our hopes and faith, our true sense of optimism can actually manifest in our lives in the most miraculous ways. Mercury sextile Pluto, the power of alchemy, where we do it consciously with the power and the intensity of our mental spheres. So basically our thoughts, our way of thinking, our intelligence. And this is where what we speak, we actually do create. This is the kind of aspect, both due to Neptune, Jupiter and Pluto, and of course Saturn, the Lord of Manifestation, when words can have really, really great power, especially promises, affirmations, even mantras if you want to spiritualize this. Asking for help, reaching out, communicating your needs has a great chance to attract their manifestation to appear in your life, sometimes in a miraculous way, but other times in a very straightforward way, that someone who can help you reads it, listens, it enters their sphere of consciousness, and they decide to help you, because Neptune is also compassion, it is also solidarity, it is also empathy, and Jupiter is, generosity. Jupiter is the virtues, and we can only basically embody our virtues once we express it. Our virtues don't mean anything if it's only us that know that we possess it. They have to be worked with, they have to be shared with the world, with other people. So this is a really, really good astrological setup for receiving help, or of course offering help as well. So basically whatever you need, whatever you want to have in your life during next week, communicate it, speak it, write it, put it on social media. It doesn't really, for example, if you're looking for a job, even if the kind of job you're looking for is very unusual, and in normal circumstances you would have very little chances to actually get a reply or whatever, this week have the courage and just type it, communicate it, express it. And you might be surprised that maybe someone who is actually looking for that unique kind of work which you have to offer is going to reply and give you an opportunity. But of course, doing all of this through spiritual practices like affirmations, meditating, or simply writing it down on your journal or on a piece of paper and focusing on it is equally as useful, because maybe then you can trigger spiritual forces to work in your favor and actually manifest that which you already created through speech, through your mind, through your words. And another expression of this energy, it can be good news, especially the trine with Neptune, because trines are different than sextiles. Trines are simply free blessings. You don't have to do anything for it. So an unexpected or maybe expected good news can reach you. Someone might want to share their well-being, their happiness, their success, even from a material perspective with you. Someone would like to show their appreciation of what you do or who you are, or anything goes under this sky, because this is quite a miraculous energy due to the fact that Neptune is going to be so very, very strong. But there is one single condition to it. At the same time, Neptune squares the North Node in Gemini. Now, Gemini is our minds, our thoughts, especially the lower mind, the methodology of our mind, how it actively uses our intelligence. Just take, for example, if our minds are a processor, well, then Gemini is the command sequences that the processor needs to work with. And also, on the 30th of the month, there is going to be a partial lunar eclipse in Gemini, so it's really, really important, because this will be the big karmic lesson of this Gemini eclipse. We need to keep our thoughts, our way of thinking, and even our communications, what we speak about ourselves or how we speak to other people, how we treat other people, even verbally, we have to keep it negativity free. Of course, this is not the kind of thing that everything has to be positive, even in a surrealistic way. It has to be truthful, but being truthful doesn't mean that you can be nasty, that you can project your traumas, pains, and hurts on others. And at the same time, whenever you speak about yourself, well, you have to speak in a very respectful manner, because if you cannot respect yourself, or you do not see yourself in a very respectful manner, then how can you possibly wish other people to do the same? This doesn't mean that you have to force positivity on yourself. It just means block out self-defeating thoughts, block out worry, block out fears, block out excesses of information, block out all those things that source from the outside, for example, social media, the internet, TV, news, which impact you negatively, because if you do, it is going to be that much easier to work with your own thought patterns, to block out your own self-defeating thoughts, those fears which just stem from inside of you without any external manipulation or influence. Because, if we don't, that very powerful Neptune can very well make our nightmares, our fears, our paranoid thoughts way more real than we would like them to. And another thing I would like to mention, Mercury, especially at the beginning of the week, holds an in conjunction, a quincunx, with Mars. So this is where we need to be really polite, we need to be diplomatic, we need to be gentle, we need to be considerate in our communication and how we handle the relationship with others, in official matters, in friendship, in everything, because this is where diplomacy, this is where a compassionate and a gentle attitude can be the key to success. And Mercury and Scorpio, well, non-verbal communication counts as well. So gestures, mimic, that smile, that non-ignorant attitude, all of those can make you be open to the kindness, generosity, and goodwill of others. So in conclusion, I think all of next week is gonna be one where we can truly tap into our psychological regeneration, into our inner rebirth that is not just an internal factor, but it also manifests on the outside. And with that empowered Mercury, good news, communication, help, and solidarity from others can come as a confirmation that this rebirth or this healing, this regeneration is not just something inside our minds, but it's actually real and it has true, physical even, effects. That which is inside can reflect on the outside, and the very first signs of that reflection is communication, speech, words, and our interhuman relationship, what they reflect and project upon us. Well, this concludes next week's horoscope. Thank you so much for listening. We wish everyone a blessed and safe week. Until next time, bye for now.